on the list. So I sprained my ankle a few weeks ago. So it's kind of like I'm trying to plan reporting trips, but at the same time, if you sprain your ankle, the only thing you could really do is ice it and stay off of it, or heat it, whatever you prefer. So my uncle's a podiatrist. I spoke with him. He's sending me stuff, but I'm kind of limited where I could go, how long I could be in the field, because I don't want to make my ankle worse. But I am trying to work on some other things. It's pretty much confirmed, but I'll be interviewing India Walton on Friday. She is the socialist running for mayor of Buffalo, New York. If you haven't been following, there's been a whole lot of shenanigans. The Democratic mayor, who's corrupt, he lost the primary to India Walton. Yet he basically, despite missing the deadline by 3 months to file as a third party, somehow got on the ballot because the judge allowed him on the ballot. Fortunately, that has been overturned in appeals court, so he's now not on the ballot, but he's still fighting to be on the ballot. More importantly, this is a capital S socialist, no disrespect to Bernie, not a democratic socialist, a socialist. You might think, who cares? It's Buffalo. No, it has broader implications for the rest of the country in terms of, can a progressive candidate or a socialist candidate overcome the rigging of the Democratic primary? Remember, AOC, they just slept on her. They didn't expect her to even compete. So they didn't try to rig it, and she won. So I'll be interviewing India Wilton Friday. Looking forward to that. Yeah. And Travers. Hey, Jordan. Just quick correction. When I said Jordan was name checked on Rogan, it may have been Jordan Peterson.
Oh, no.
You got Colin going through Joe Rogan all day yesterday to try to find a mention of me, Travers. You owe Colin an apology. That's okay, Travers.
No, we appreciate it.
So anyway, smash that like button.
Speaking of my mug beauty and the diabetes, I am not a Baratheon fan. If you spotted that it's a House Baratheon mug, no, I'm not. It just so happened to be a free mug. I am totally Stark, by the way. Continue.
I think Ned Stark is alive, by the way. But anyway.
Yeah, that's Jordan's theory. He continues on despite evidence.
Anyway, if you haven't noticed, folks, it's just, I don't know. It's like getting a seasonal shot or something. Well, I shouldn't say shot because we don't want to trigger people. There's this seasonal thing where on YouTube, it's like, I don't know, every 2.5 months, all of a sudden there's humans in a room pulling a lever to further squeeze this channel, other channels. I've noticed it on other channels too. Viewership is really, really bad unless you're putting, really all caps sensational stuff in a headline. So 121,000 subscribers, yet as you could see, we're barely over 100 live viewers right now. So please do your part. Smash the like button. F you to the 6 dislikes. And please smash that like button. Share this live stream.
Everybody needs haters, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Shout out to our haters.
even post it separately. Even post it separately as its own social media post. Let's get this out to more people.
I can't get over my hair. This is so embarrassing.
Also, we should announce, we'll promote it later too, but we should announce double whammy. Colin, if you have it, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Another members call. So statuscoup.com/join. We'll have our second members call of the month. The last one was kind of quick and impromptu. I don't think we had enough time to really promote it. So today's Tuesday. Hopefully, we'll obviously promote it. So more members. Colin members, no apostrophe, just members.
It is a tough one. It's hard to just decide which way it goes. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we also have, to continue to talk about the members call, we had a great conversation last call, and we actually had a gentleman who had a different stance on, the vaccines, not to bring up that topic again. So we had a good discussion. We talked about other stuff. And that's what it's all about. It's our chance to get to know you. You guys get to know us more. We're much more not that we're not relaxed right now and, speaking in a friendly, non-CNN tone, but on these Asking Anything calls, we get a chance to to really connect with you in a different way. And so a lot of people say that this alone is worth the cost of the $5 a month to be a member, and you'll be boosting important independent media as well. So statuscoup.com/join.
And by the way, nothing to report yet, but we do have some ideas to give some new little perks for membership. So we'll have something to announce on that front.
Ooh,
Colin, I think we're
yeah.
at 1,826 members right now. So we got to get that number up. Lickety split. If you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join, $5 a month. You could join our monthly members call, other behind the scenes content. We're trying to come up with some other membership perks within reason, because Jen and I are both already pretty overwhelmed. But hopefully we can get that number up, because we need, the only way we could build without bowing to the corporations and taking their money, which we will not be doing ever, is through you.
Yeah, and I think our membership is really, really personalized and really does take you behind the scenes in a way that other memberships don't. So I think it's really special. It's something, our membership is something I'm really proud of, and it truly, like, our members are the very reason we've broken multiple investigative stories on Flint. You're the reason we were able to do an evictions moratorium tour. You're the reason we're able to do this reporting. So definitely join. That you're doing like real good, and you have a hand in our reporting. So we appreciate all of you.
And we'll definitely shout out our new members as they come in while we're live.
Yeah, let's have them flow in. I also want to mention tomorrow we have a very, very important and great guest. I'm really excited. So if you guys were watching yesterday, a lot of you really seem to give major kudos to Mike Preisner, who he's an Iraq war veteran. And if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. But he attended one of George W. Bush's highly paid speeches. Tickets were $500 and over. And he stood up in the middle of the speech, balls of steel, and protested, demanded that George W. Bush apologize for the murder of his friends, his comrades, and for over 1 million Iraqis. And George Bush told him to sit down and behave. So that's how George Bush treats veterans. Mike was, of course, escorted out. They did an action again yesterday, another protest action. Mike's clip has now gone very viral. It was on the front page of Reddit, I believe. It's really, really gone all over the place. And that's because he's bringing awareness to the crimes of George W. Bush and railing against the rehabilitation of George W. Bush. So Mike will be on tomorrow. That's Mike Preisner, Abby Martin's partner, and part of the Empire Files, the Eyes Left podcast. He's really fantastic. He has been in this space for a long time, railing against the Iraq war, Afghanistan, etc. So definitely tune in tomorrow. It's going to be great. We're glad to have Mike on.
Hey, Colin, not to be narcissistic, can we do a little better with my picture? Because honestly, I look like an animal.
Mine too. We need to send you good pictures.
I look like an animorph. That beard, my beard.
I'm surprised you know what animorphs are, Jordan.
Yeah, I read it
Nice.
when I was younger. That beard is just, I look like I don't know, like one of those cavemen type of beards. So maybe we can get a little bit more polished, something like that. I'll have to send you. Anywho, smash that like button. 150 people watching. Let's get it up. So, Jen,
I also want, before we dive in, I'm so sorry, but I want to remind everybody that we have long planned to move away from Teespring for our merchandise, because they're not, they're just, a regular old sweatshop company, and that doesn't fit. That's not in line with our values. So we decided to move to a more sustainable company for our merch, and Colin's been working on that. He's adding new stuff. We will soon have additional designs beyond our logo, but I'm really excited that this company tries to be as sustainable and ethical as possible. So yeah, if you just scroll through those, Colin, I am so obsessed with the tie-dye shirt. Very exciting to me. And we'll add more and more over time. So go to statuscoup.tmail.com, or you can simply go to statuscoup.com and click on our merch or store link. I can't recall which they changed it to in our new site design.
Yes.
But check that out. Get some new ethical, sustainable merch.
Yes. So let's get into it, because I think a lot of people, progressive or not, kind of their eyes glaze when they hear the word reconciliation deal. What does that mean? Why is it important? What's in it? Blah, 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 blah. To me, and Jen and I were discussing this before the live stream, to me, separate two things: the actual 3.5 reconciliation deal, which, Colin, if you have that slide from last week, we could tell people what's in it. So the 3.5 trillion reconciliation deal is essentially would be Biden. They say Biden, it's really Bernie's policies, but Biden's big kahuna, the last thing he'll be able to get through before complete gridlock heading into the midterm elections. So in this proposed $3.5 trillion deal, if you can go back to the first slide, Colin, in this proposed $3.5 trillion, universal pre-K would be in there. Jen and I have talked about how important that is. Free community college, paid family leave, which we're one of the only countries that does not have that. Expansion of the child tax credit, which could be up to $3,000 for certain families, depending on, I think it's how many children you have, Jen.
What, the child tax credit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's depending on, I believe, income. So for example, I have 2 kids. We get $500 a month for them.
Right. So
expand in a weird way.
So child tax credit, expanding that, $3,000 a year, $5,000 a year. That's not incremental for many families. That's substantial. Expanding Medicare. So hearing, vision, and dental. And by the way, I just went to the dentist this morning. I can tell you, it's wildly expensive. It was $160. So 80% electric power by 2030, affordable housing investment. There's several other things in there, but we just put in like the hallmark provisions.
And they're still like adding and taking away things and revising. So, but this is the gist.
Right. And Jen and I have already explained why we don't think this is incremental, although obviously we want more. Medicare for all, things like that. I actually think
it's not incremental in the way that people are using it as like a pejorative.
Yes. Say. Like, it is not radical, overturn the system. But again, like, we're not going to lie to you. We do not have the White House currently. We also don't have majorities in Congress. The best progressives can do is block bills, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So to get these things stacked on under a Republican president like Biden is a pretty big deal. That doesn't mean, we have to have, in conjunction with that, direct action for more, which is, economic boycotts, things like that.
Correction. Thank you so much, Amanda Nichols, saying child tax credit is $250 a month for kids under 7, $300 for kids under 11 a month. I'm not sure how that checks out because I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. So, however, I don't know. I can't tell you the details. Unfortunately, I will look that up.
Damn, I should have done that, Tim. Joe the Manchurian. That would have been Joe the Manchurian Manchin rather than Hijacker.
Nice.
Anyway, in our view, we need to do more than 2 things at once. We need to fight for this and also fight for more. And the fight for more, we've already talked about over and over. We need mass economic boycotts in this country, which you can't do unless the left gets actually organized, which it's not now. So that's...
Well, I just want to say, too, one of the things that kind of made me stop and pause, like, okay, this isn't just another effort. This isn't just another bill. Is Bernie Sanders said that this is the most consequential, bill of... since the 1930s. So that really kind of makes you stop and realize this is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. And, there are people that could say, oh, it's incremental, or, oh, it's nothing burger. Well, I mean, I don't know if those people are looking what's in it. Again, you could think multiple things. You could think, no, we need Medicare for all. We need these things. I'm with you. But also, like, people saying that need to also answer, well, should we just shy away from any good things while we don't have the White House majorities in Congress? So to me, there's separate things here. The actual reconciliation deal, which Jen and I have just pointed out why we think it's good. And then the broader battle, because really underneath this reconciliation bill, and whether it passes or it gets tanked, to me is really about the direction and future of the progressive movement in this country. Because right now, and we're going to basically find out over the next week, we will find out if the progressives in Congress, and everybody has a different definition of progressive these days, but I'm talking AOC, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida, the squad plus. We're going to see if they actually are going to exert their power, actually are going to finally put a line in the sand, put their foot down, and say, oh, no, neoliberalism, that's over now. If you don't go through us and you don't agree to our demands, we're going to shut this. We're going to shut your agenda down. We're going to shut shit down. And that is currently the tussle right now. So if your eyes are getting glazed over or you don't know much or this is all complicated to you, let me just simplify it. And then we're going to play a few clips. Bottom line, because Democrats in the House only have really a 3 or 4 seat majority, they could only really lose unless they get a ton of help from Republicans, meaning a lot of Republicans vote for the bipartisan infrastructure deal. Because again, there's 2 things happening at once. You have the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure deal, which is really just a privatized abyss. It's really $500 billion in new money, which is not enough for our destroyed airports, roads, bridges, all that. And it's mostly privatized. But for the only way that that's going to pass, if progressives carry out their threat of voting no, is if a lot of Republicans vote along with the Democrats who will vote yes. Right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So basically, progressives could tank Joe Biden's fetish, which is, this bipartisan infrastructure deal showing, we could work together to screw you again, meaning Democrats and Republicans both vote on it. Democrats have been consistent. Jayapal has been consistent. The squad has been consistent. There's been a lot of response to that. Well, I'll see it when I believe it. Well, we're about a week away. So the time, whether they're going to do it, is coming up. Right now, they're saying we will not vote. We remain steadfast. We will not vote for this bipartisan infrastructure deal if we don't get the $3.5 trillion reconciliation deal. And I want to play a clip, Colin, if you have the clip from CNN. It starts with Manu Raju. I can't pronounce
Manu
it.
Raju.
Yeah, but if you could play this clip, Colin.
The moderate Democrats think you're bluffing on this, and that you guys will fall in line ultimately when this vote happens.
They can take that bet if they want. I can say that they're bluffing on how many Republicans are going to go with us, but even if they had that number of Republicans to go on the bipartisan bill, we would still have enough votes to defeat it.
Senator, progressives in the House are threatening to sink the infrastructure bill if the reconciliation bill is not passed both chambers by next Monday. Is that the right approach?
Look, we had an agreement from the beginning, and that was that there would be one package. It might take multiple votes, but that one package would move forward. Look, I know that a lot of people would say, let's try to break this thing apart, take it in smaller bites. But the reality is, in the world of the filibuster, we got one bite at passing a lot of this through, and we cannot fail the American people.
So this is the real question here, whether or not the progressives ultimately fall in line, whether they do in fact block that infrastructure package, and if they do.
So a few things are amazing about this, Jen. I don't know how much TV or CNN you've been watching, but already the narrative is forming. Already the narrative is forming on CNN or MSNBC. Will progressives really block this? Will progressives really sabotage? I've heard sabotage. So we knew this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen in terms of the media making the progressives the terrorists if they block the bipartisan infrastructure deal. Of course, when Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema block things, they're just, pragmatic centrists or whatever they like to call it. But also, Colin, if you could show the screenshot I sent you with Jayapal, Jayapal has also said Monday afternoon she feels very good about her whip count on Democrats voting to stop the infrastructure bill next week if the larger budget bill hasn't cleared the full Senate by then. Quote, it will not pass. So, Jen, I get it. I get the people who are saying I'll believe it when I see it. But we're about a week away, and there's absolutely time for Jayapal and the rest of the gang to cave, for them to take vote for the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which I don't think is good because it's privatized, and then, accept a much more watered down deal. Not 3.5 trillion, maybe closer to 1.5 to 2 trillion. So that's perfectly possible. But I'm encouraged that she's on the record, on camera, publicly saying, yeah, try me. I have not seen that from Pramila Jayapal ever before. I haven't seen the squad organized like this and on the same message before. I'm not naive. Again, they could cave. But I think separate from the reconciliation deal, it's important for the progressive movement and the progressives in Congress that you donated for, that you knocked on doors for, you made calls for. It is important that they set the tone that no, we are not the days of us just rolling over because there's a COVID emergency or because of X emergency. That's over. We will shut you down if you keep watering down bills or succumbing to Joe the Manchurian Manchin.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like in today's progressive political space, it's really hard to get your hopes up. And people are very hesitant to do that. For example, I sent you a text. I hadn't watched the video. All I saw was a quote from Elizabeth Warren, and I can't recall. I'm trying to get my phone to show me what text I sent.
You were texting about her in that clip, what she meant.
Yeah. So what I was
and just to be clear, I'm not lumping in Elizabeth Warren with the term progressive, but go on.
Oh, of course. But she had said, I don't know, I can't find it. But she said something like, "This is our last chance to get things through." And because it was Elizabeth Warren, I hadn't watched the video or seen much of the context. I wrote Jordan and was like, "Well, does this mean this is our last chance to get things through, so we will give in?"
You asked, does that mean,
that's what I'm saying? I said I texted Jordan.
Oh, you said Jordan said, but anyway.
No. Well, if I did, I apologize. So what I mean to say is I texted Jordan and said, this is the quote. Is she saying that this is our last chance to get stuff in, so we'll give in? Or is she saying this is our last chance to get truly progressive policy in, so we will not give in? And I said, because I said I think it's the latter, but it's Elizabeth Warren. So I think a lot of people have that feeling, have that sense of, can we truly trust these people? And also, why are they suddenly standing up? Obviously, it's what we want them to do, but it raises questions of, okay, is something good actually happening? But wait, why are they suddenly taking a stand? And, there are different answers that we can get into and speculate about, but I understand people's hesitancy here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And by the way, the headline is holding firm. I should have said for now, because I put the caveats. I mean, it is very possible based on previous history that they could fold like a cheap tent, which they have been doing over and over and over again. I'm talking about the squad and Bernie. I think
I'm curious, why do you think this time?
Well, I think that partially why they're doing it now is because the previous times they folded. So we're talking the original coronavirus deal, which was, I think, March of 2020 or April of 2020. I mean, the sky was falling. So, millions of people were losing their job, right then and there. I think over 3,000 people were dying a day. By the way, we're not really far off from that right now. So we've all become numb to that, but there's still an insane amount of people dying a day due to COVID, with, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like no sign of relief. So I think at that point, it's like, yeah, I understand, like, when is the time to take a stand? I understand that argument, but at the same time, I mean, if they were going to take a stand at that moment, what that would practically look like is them delaying a like blinking red lights need for trillions of dollars to go out the door for unemployment, nutrition programs, the eviction moratorium that we broke. There was a whole lot of people falling through the cracks. So at that point, I think they didn't think that was the time to take a stand. As far as forced to vote, I disagreed with them not taking a stand. You did too. I think they should have. Mm-hmm. I think their calculation for that was wrong. But I think their calculation was, well, they didn't think it was as important as you, I, Jimmy Dore, and others thought to get people actually on the record. Mm-hmm. And they also didn't think, I think for them, starting the term, basically being benched by Pelosi, if this was not actually going to get Medicare for all, would be poor strategy. I don't agree with that, but I could only guess that was their psychology. Mm-hmm. The $15 minimum wage, them not fighting for that once it was backed out, I think that's just weakness. I think that's not having a spine. That was the time. They should have fought for that. So I can't really psychoanalyze, but I think right now, maybe why they're actually, at least verbally, standing firm is because this package is not, I don't want to say there isn't an immediate need for a lot of these things. There is an immediate need for a lot of the things in the package, but it's not it's a longer term structural changes. It's not the sky is falling. So child tax credit or dental, hearing, and vision. Like it's the 3.5 trillion is a longer term structural change. You would see the policies being enacted relatively quickly, but it's not like millions of people are losing their job as we speak. Millions of people are being evicted. So I think that's why the calculus is different. It's not the initial acute stages of the pandemic. But I think they were wrong on forced to vote, on not doing anything on $15 minimum wage. So I want to play another clip, Jen. I will say at the moment, I reserve my right to change. And by the way, I haven't read it yet, but there was an article, I think in BuzzFeed, had a little Amy Klobuchar vibes as far as Pramila Jayapal and her treatment of staff. So we'll have to look into that.
Eating salad with combs.
Apparently not playing up to her progressive bona fides with staff. I didn't read it. I just saw the headline. But I am tentatively encouraged by this. Again, I'm not sheepdogging for them, telling you to love them. If they cave again, I will be the first to go nuclear. But this is a lot better than preemptively surrendering, which has been what they've done. So Jayapal, that clip, basically telling the CNN stooge, well, they could say what they want, but that's good. I like the sound of that. This next Ro Khanna clip, I do not like. Colin, if you could play Democracy Now!, Ro Khanna on there.
Be what most people don't realize. This $3.5 trillion is not going to be spent this year.
Thank you, Amy, for making that clarification. It is over 10 years. People don't talk about the fact that over those same 10 years, we're going to spend $7.5 trillion on defense. When they talk about defense, they use the one-year number. But when they're talking about social investments, human investments, they use the 10-year number. So this is $350 billion over the year. The other point that is worth making is that the progressives have been willing to have a conversation. We are willing to engage in a dialogue with the White House, with Senator Manchin, with Senator Sinema, of how we get this done. The question is, are they going to engage in that dialogue? We still haven't heard what Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema are for. They keep saying what they're against. What we want to know is, what are they for?
Okay. So on Sunday...
enough of that. So, Jen, I have a lot to say on that, so you go first.
I'm disappointed. You know, Ro Khanna has been great on so many issues. He is very extraordinarily wealthy from his wife. So that, of course, always deserves scrutiny and raises eyebrows. But for the most part, his votes are good and progressive. Back when I was I was on the writing team of Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress, way back when they first got started. And we had a Medicare for All thing in DC, trying to push Congress members to, sign on to whatever bill was in play at that time. I can't recall. It was 5 years ago or something. And Ro Khanna, and unfortunate what happened later, but John Conyers, Ro Khanna and John Conyers were the only two who showed up from Congress. So I've always kind of thought, okay, this guy means business. That wasn't a highly attended event by any means. Justice Dems was just getting started. I think we had less than 10 people show up, and they came out. There wasn't a ton of media. I think like Daniel Marins was there, and he did a write-up later, but that's it. So it wasn't like a photo op. So I've always thought that, Ro Khanna is good. Like, he means for out of our Congress members, Ro Khanna is a good one and can be swayed to be even more progressive. That's what I felt about him. What he just said there, I don't like, because him saying, okay, we're willing to talk to the White House, we're willing to talk to other members with questions, that to me is a signal of, we're willing to capitulate. We're willing to have some wiggle room. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's not a strong stance at all.
I'll be less diplomatic than you. And by the way, I won't go into detail, but I happen to know Ro Khanna occasionally has not liked some of my tweets or whatever, YouTube videos. So whatever. I'm not against him as a person, but he's a public servant, and I'll politically give him a lashing if I choose. But would love to interview you. You're dealing with a political terrorist, Ro Khanna. Joe Manchin is a political terrorist. So is Kristen Sinema, whatever the hell she is. Did you send me the link that she was did an internship last summer as a senator?
If we have time later, we'll pull it up. But yes, Kristen Sinema was a paid intern last summer. Like,
where?
At a winery. At a winery.
Oh, maybe that's why she goes in front of Congress.
She's a mom, but truest sense of wine mom.
Maybe she was drunk when she went like Clueless style and put her thumbs down.
She's just the worst. I really want to dig into her background. Like, how do you go from Green Party to that?
Yeah. So, Ro, if you're watching, I don't want to hear about dialogue. We're willing to have dialogue. The bar was 6 trillion. Okay. Bernie put the bar at 6 trillion. There was a lot more in there for climate, which your California is on fire, not to mention drought, not to mention extreme temperatures. Yeah. So I understand, and obviously this is just how he is. Ro Khanna's style is to be cordial, talk about negotiation, talk about we'll have some dialogue, this and that. Where has that gotten you, Ro? Seriously. And I know, it's easy for a YouTube host to say that, and I'm not in there and I don't know everything, but where has this diplomacy gotten you? And let's extrapolate beyond Ro Khanna. Where has it gotten Pramila Jayapal? Where has it gotten AOC in the squad, right? AOC has been diplomatic in a nauseating way, and she's been passed over for committees and other things. So when you say we're willing to have dialogue with Senator Manchin, on what? You know what he wants. The Intercept has reported it. I mean, the Intercept obtained audio of secret calls he had with donors, basically explaining to them what he was going to tank on behalf of those donors. You know what he wants. And that is, he doesn't actually want anything. It's all about what he's to stop. So when you say, well, they haven't told us what they're for is nothing. Status quo, maintaining the subsidies to coal and fossil fuckers. I don't know what Kristen Sinema is for, other than, There's been video captured of Kristen Sinema talking to business owners in Arizona and basically in nice words saying, I'm here for you guys. So I don't understand why you think, Ro Khanna, the best public position should be being cordial when A, you got the public on your side and they want you to fight. DC is not real life. Outside of DC, outside of CNN, people think Joe Manchin is the political arsonist, not you guys. So I think, and Jayapal kind of sort of had it down better than her usual talk. I think you should say, yeah, no, we've already had a dialogue. We have already compromised and then some on several bills, including the original Coronavirus Relief Act, including the 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, which we compromised for Joe Manchin. The unemployment, if you remember, in the coronavirus deal in January, that unemployment went down from $400 a week to $300 a week for Joe, the hijacker Manchin. The term of when it would expire was shrunk, so less amount for less amount of time because of Joe Manchin. So, I mean, the $15 minimum wage, this parliamentarian who also just ruled, which is a joke, that you can't have.
We should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that you can't have. She just ruled again. This unelected, by the way, non-binding position. Her rules are not binding. It's just advisory.
It's insane.
Advice is like assholes. Everybody has them. So,
well,
and
my
she just ruled that in the 3.5 trillion deal, you can't have legal status for undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about the parliamentarian too, because we haven't yet. But my question is, do these folks, does Ro Khanna, Pramila Jayapal, AOC, even going to the Senate, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Schumer, do they have a PR strategy? Like, how closely are they coordinating their messaging? It has to be somewhat, right? But
why I said I was encouraged was, as far as I could tell, somebody could correct me, I have never seen as a block them all saying the same thing for this long and this close to the deadline, because the deadline, which is stupid and artificial, Pelosi agreed to September 27th for the vote on the bipartisan infrastructure deal. So that is next week. So
they have to be signaling to someone, like all of these hits that they have on mainstream media. They're getting information out to the public, whatever, but they're also signaling to each other and across the aisle. So I'm always trying to figure out the message behind the message, if that makes sense.
So to me, and I'm just going to be flat, whether Ro Khanna likes it or not, the only dialogue you should be having and the only people you should be dialoguing with, Ro, and I would say get all these other people in the van, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, get them all in a van or whatever you could fit. The dialogue you should be having is with the people of West Virginia. Get your behinds down to West Virginia. I mean,
you can even use my van. Jordan loves my van.
Yeah, I don't understand. That's a real hazard, her van. I don't understand. I don't understand this. I mean, he's not naive. These are all smart people. This continued repeating the same failed strategy of let's have dialogue, or, we're willing to come to the table. You've already gone to the table, okay? And they've eaten your lunch. So now is the time, with public sentiment behind you, just like it was behind you, by the way, with Force to Vote, go to West Virginia, get in front of rallies, bring Bernie with you, and shame this man. And Jen, I want to show you another thing. Colin, if you have it. This is from Bob Woodward's new book. All the media is having Bobby Woodward on. He has done another Trump book. I don't have it. But this excerpt kind of shows you, again, I expect this from Biden, not the squad, but it kind of shows you Biden, the president of the United States, is apparently powerless in front of Joe the hijacker too. Colin, if you could show those quotes I asked you for. This is from Bob Woodward's book. Biden called Joe Manchin around 1 p.m. And by the way, this period is during the American Rescue Plan, which was the 1.9 COVID relief bill. Biden called Joe Manchin around 1 p.m. Manchin was in the hideaway with his
so this
chief
would
of
have
staff.
been January, to be clear, right?
January. Manchin was in the hideaway with his chief of staff. I don't know what that means. It must mean up, at a coal company. Joe, Biden said, you wanted the unemployment smaller. We did that. You wanted certain dates for the supplemental unemployment benefit. We addressed that. You wanted checks targeted. We did that. This is basically it. You need to come along. Continued. Manchin corrected Biden. He said additional unemployment checks, though smaller, went for a longer time into the fall. People would be paid for not working for an extended period. And then he voiced frustration about this new $10,200 tax credit, which he had just learned about. Someone who was not working was going to get an initial tax break, while someone who worked would not get it. Yeah, most people weren't working. It was a pandemic, you fucking asshole. Joe, Biden said, if you don't come along, you're really fucking me. This is Biden talking to Manchin. If you don't come along, you're really fucking me. I need you on this. Find your way to yes on this. I don't know. I promised Rob Portman, the Ohio Republican, vanilla shake, Manchin said. He said he was talking to economists. They were telling him the economy would take off like a rocket, Mr. President. Mr. President, we need people ready to go back to work no later than July. Mr. President, you have said that we will have vaccines available to all citizens in our country who want it by May. I can't lose this bill, Biden said. His voice was insistent, flecked with irritation. You're going to make me lose my bill, Biden said. This is like a little fucking child. Like, don't take my toy away, Joe. I'm just the president. Don't take my toy. You have to trust me, Manchin said. You will not. He said his intention was not to kill the bill, only to get some parts removed. He was with Biden, but he wanted the White House to work with him. Joe, damn it, Biden said impatiently. I just can't lose this bill. Mr. President, Manchin said, in all due respect, you couldn't lose this bill with a keg of dynamite. A whole lot of nitroglycerin wouldn't blow it up. It's got so much good in it. He added, every little municipality is going to get money. They are, for the first time, taking control of their destiny. They could fix their water lines, sewer lines, internet service. We've got a lot of good here, Mr. President. Joe Biden said, don't kill my bill. It was a personal request. Your bill is not going to get killed, Mr. President. I assure you that. Then the Manchin stubbornness that the White House feared surfaced. Quote, I'm not going to cave on this, Manchin said. I need something here. We have to reach a deal, but don't worry, Mr. President. We'll get this done. Call ended. Biden told his aides to make sure this gets done. So, Jen, if you allow me to just go off on this. By the way, smash the like button. 270 people. 270 people watching, 199 likes. That's 60 likes. 60 likes on the table. If you don't like me, I'm sure you like Jen.
Do it for the sunscreen in my hair. That if you're just joining us, I accidentally sprayed sunscreen instead of dry shampoo. Do it for that.
And by the way, if you missed it at the top, I'm actually working in a moldy area here and coughing my lungs out. So please, pity likes are always welcome. Share this live stream too. So Jen, first of all, I want to address a few things here. You remember when MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all the Wall Street corporatist fucks told you, yeah, but Biden's the more pragmatic choice. He actually could get things done. He could get things through. He knows how to work both sides. Are you kidding me? This man is basically in fetal position, begging, Joe, don't screw me on this. Joe.
It's embarrassing.
Joe, you can't take my bill, Joe. You can't take this away from me, Joe. Please don't, Joe. What do I have to do, Joe? Do I need to send you a nice gourmet lunch with Cole? I mean, this is the president. This is the pragmatic choice who can't even muscle Joe fucking Manchin. Listen, I'm not a fan of Lyndon B. Johnson for a lot of reasons. He didn't talk like this to senators obstructing him. He threatened them.
He knew how to get stuff done.
Yeah, he threatened them. So I don't understand. And by the way, progressives have basically been acting this way. Maybe we don't have the quotes, but I don't understand. I mean, Joe Biden, I don't know. He's the president. Like, you threaten Joe, if you're not with me on this, I will make you pay for it. You will pay. Either come election time or before that, you're going to pay. I'm the president and you're going to do this for me. Hang up the phone. Why are people walking on eggshells on Joe Manchin? Maybe he would fold if he ever felt any pressure. He doesn't feel any pressure because you got Khanna out there. Well, we're open to a dialogue. And you have President Biden. Oh, please don't screw me, Mr. Manchin. Please don't screw me, King Manchin. It's pathetic. So why and Jen, I think you sent me this, so shout out to you for finding it. I mean, honestly, the strategy is not working, okay? So being diplomatic with Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and catering to their needs, which their only need is to strip, that's their main need, strip the climate proposals out of any deal. The Intercept did a story, I think 2 weeks ago. They found that Joe Manchin has made $4.5 million from the coal companies he founded while he's been a senator. So in 10 years, as he's been a senator, he's made $4.5 million from those coal companies that I believe his son is still running. And he's made another between $1 and $5 million in stock options from those coal companies. So when Khanna says, well, I don't know what he wants, he doesn't say what he's for, follow the money. It's clear what he's for and why he's not for what you want. So I don't know, Jen, call me radical, but I think it would be a better idea, and you could go on Democracy Now! If you want, go to West Virginia with the band, with the gang. You'll sell out in no time. Every county in West Virginia voted for Bernie in the 2016 primary. Let's not forget that. And shame this man with facts and data. Let him double down. Let him double down. I don't think he's going to double down with that kind of pressure. Sure, the media will call you terrorists. The media will say you're divisive. Who cares? They're going to attack you regardless. So I'm sick of it. I am happy, again, in fairness, that at least Jayapal is publicly, usually in the past, it would be this point where Jayapal started hemming and hawing, you know? And Bernie, too, to be fair, Bernie, if asked specifically, will you go any lower than X amount? He had never answered the question directly. Even Bernie is saying no. And you want to know something, Jen? At the end of the day, I wouldn't be happy about it. But let's say, I don't know, they got to go to $3 trillion. That would still be a pretty big victory. By the way, for people who say it's incremental, that would be the largest social spending package in modern American history. The only spending that has been more is to bail out the banks and bail out all the corporatist fucks. On actual people, this is the largest social spending package in modern American history. So it's not incremental. Don't listen to people telling you it's incremental. And I don't want it to go down, but anything less than $3 trillion, no. Block it. It is time to take a stand. Now is the time to take a stand. I'm sorry for, the people who wouldn't get certain things. But if you don't take a stand at some point, and you don't break the cycle of allowing corporatist fucks to water down every piece of legislation and, bless it and let the media bless it as, bipartisan victory. We got nothing, but together they gave you nothing, the Democrats and Republicans, then we're going to be having the same conversation for the next decade. We're going to go in these cycles. The Democrats aren't going to run any policy achievements because they're not delivering any major policy achievements. They'll just run on Marjorie Taylor Greene and the threat of Trump and the threat of DeSantis and the threat of QAnon and whatever. And it's got to stop. So, Jen, I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would not put money down that the progressives are going to hold the line. But Jordan just gave away $500 billion. I don't know.
Because you said they can't go lower than 3.
No. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I don't think they should negotiate at all. But when it comes down to it, there's a difference between cutting down to $3 trillion, which is still a shit ton of money, and what Manchin wants, which is like $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion. No.
Well, and by the way, this is over 10 years. So this isn't right now, which is something that I think they need to do a better job of explaining to the people. I don't know. And Jordan, we've talked about this offline too, because we're very boring people.
Jen, why do you follow my rants with nuance? I don't like it.
Your rants get my brain turning. That's all I can say. But we've talked about, because I've said, like, why do Democrats, progressives, in air quotes, capitulate to Joe Manchin all the time, Kirsten Sinema too, but Joe Manchin mainly. And you were like, well, of course, like they need the votes, but I don't know, man. I feel like they could do a better job of again, going back to PR. I think they could have a better PR strategy, like in the background against Joe Manchin, and come out.
I just gave you the strategy, not in the background. Get the fuck to West Virginia. That's the strategy.
But what I'm saying there. So I guess we're at the same conclusion. Like, there are no more excuses at this point. Is my conclusion. And I want to talk a little bit more about the Senate parliamentarian, because it is so insane. Ryan Grimm had a great breakdown of this today, actually, about the Senate parliamentarian. I'm curious your take, Jordan. Like, obviously, it's crazy. The Senate parliamentarian is not a real barrier. This is not a real issue. But she is acting like she has authority over Congress, over the Senate, and that she's like this ruling, like a Supreme Courtish type figure, and they do kind of bow down to her, but she could be easily overruled or removed, and it wouldn't take much. And they're not doing that. They didn't do that in February. There are no signs of them doing that now. I'm curious if that is like their excuse. I think it probably is, of, oh, we failed, but it's because of this parliamentarian, which, by the way, had anyone ever, like, had the parliamentarian ever made news like this before? No. So there's a reason for that.
Oh, it's very simple. Biden is using the parliamentarian as an excuse to not fight for things he doesn't really care about. It starts with the $15 minimum wage. Biden didn't really care about the $15 minimum wage. He's never really been about raising the minimum wage to a set amount. He ran on it as like one of his only campaign promises, but he's not Bernie. He's not like dying over the minimum wage. He just said it as he needed something other than restore the soul of something. So yeah, no, they use the parliamentarian as an excuse. I think they're using it as an excuse for the undocumented immigrant issue, because again, they were going to try and get it through in this bill, legal status for undocumented immigrants. But you want to know something? I mean, at the end of the day, Trump fired the parliamentarian, and Biden doesn't even need to do that. He could just say, hey, appreciate your opinion. We disagree, and we're going to do it anyway. So like this gaslighting on like the sanctity of the Senate parliamentarian and what they say, it's absurd. Again, is the president of the United States ballsless? Has no anything? He just sits there in fetal position. Please, Joe.
That's so embarrassing for him.
Give me this bill. Give me
Joe
this
to
bill.
Joe, please.
Yeah, it's absurd. So yeah, I think the parliamentarian, I mean, it's just a go-to excuse. That's all.
But that makes me even more suspicious of the true intent of so-called progressives in Congress.
Well, they don't really have anything to do with the parliamentarian decision.
No, I mean Congress is like as a whole, including the Senate. So specifically, of course, the Senate. It feels like such.
It's an excuse to not take tough votes. The media will just go along. They won't actually challenge, like, why are you listening to this unelected person and their advisory positions, which in history were never binding. Most presidents ignored it. So, yeah, I think it's just an excuse for Democrats not to have to take tough votes or to run on a $15 minimum wage, but their donors don't want it. So to run on it, but then find an easy out to not piss off the donors. I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
I think that really does sum it up, which, of course, again, it makes me even more suspicious of the actual intent of senators, because it is a really convenient excuse to have her there.
Yeah. So I am cautiously optimistic. I know, people don't like that. A lot of people, it's over. It doesn't matter what's presently going on. They've just given up on these people, and that's your right to feel that way. But I'm a little, because honestly, the reason I'm cautiously optimistic is at a certain point, if you're this consistent as far as you're going to vote no, you're going to vote no. We're talking like a week before we're voting no. They don't have the votes. You kind of put yourself in a bad position to then walk it back. Like you've put your feet down. So you would kind of look emasculated more so than normal if you walk it back. Then I also want to point out, Colin, if you have this, I should have said this earlier. This is from Forbes. Well, Jayapal is also correct because they're not going to, like, the only way that the Democrats could still pass the bipartisan infrastructure deal if the Squad and many other progressives vote no is if they had more Republicans voting yes for it to kind of cancel out the no votes among progressives. Well, key House Republicans balk at saving the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill from progressive boycott. So as House progressives threaten to withhold dozens of votes to pass a bipartisan 1.2 infrastructure bill, if it comes up for a vote in the coming weeks, several Republican members of a bipartisan group that backed the bill say they have no plans to rescue it. Two members of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which, by the way, is just a corporatist donor-bought caucus that pretends to be problem solvers and independents. Congressman Mike Gallagher and Congressman Mike Bost told Forbes they won't vote for the bill, while another Congressman Peter Major said he has a tremendous amount of discomfort with it. Several caucus members and moderate Republicans said they are still undecided on the bill, and only two members of the caucus, Kinzinger and Fitzpatrick, say they are supportive of it. Progressives say they have dozens of votes to deny passage. So you get the point. At the moment, it doesn't sound like they have 20 Republicans to vote for the bipartisan deal. So I don't know, Jen. We're going to stay on this because, again, there's two separate things. One, I actually do think, contrary to what other people say, I don't think this is incremental. I think like the child tax credit expansion on its own, yeah, that's an incremental thing. But when you have several things like the free public college, universal pre-K, paid family leave, expanding Medicare, the child tax credit, we didn't get into it, but there's a lot of money for affordable housing. Yeah, I don't think progressives should throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, if it's not Medicare for all, incremental. No, like you can't progress. If it will help working people, we should be for it. But we should also be organizing and strategizing for the radical change. And that is a whole nother topic that we have talked a lot about.
Yeah,
do you have anything else on this?
Yeah. So that's the thing. This is really substantial for a lot of people right now. This will be life-changing for so many people right now. There's a reason that Bernie says this is the most important, for lack of a better word, he did use a better word, I just can't recall it, bill since the 1930s. There's a definite reason for that. And we have to, while a lot of us want the revolution, a lot of us want to overturn the system, seize the means of production, depending on how left you get there, we have to think about people right now. And so that doesn't mean this is incremental, which you have to think about like the actual definition of that word versus how it's being used. So I'm speaking of the way it's being used by some folks. This is really impactful, really, really important. I'm wondering if activists have, and this could be the case. I don't know. I would love to know if it is happening. If there are activists out there who are organizing around maybe educating folks in Cinema's state, in Arizona and in Manchins in West Virginia, around educating those voters, like really raising a threat, maybe good primary threats, like something that
from what I heard, there is
put some pressure on.
There is talk of primarying Cinema. Manchin's not up till 2024, so there's less talk on that. I think Cinema's up next year.
Good. I think that there are things that can be done now to raise a fuss to make it clear to everyone, because and Jordan and I were discussing this earlier too, whether or not the reconciliation bill is a wonky topic or not. I think it is definitely wonky. I think it's hard to dive into it. It's hard to understand the nuance, especially. I'm like getting an IV injected into my veins with like Ryan Grimm videos to try to wrap my mind around this. Jordan understands this stuff much better than I do. But I think for the average American, maybe those working 3 jobs or 2 jobs or whatever, like they're not going to be able to get into the intricate details of the reconciliation package. But some real fuss made around the fact that Sinema and Manchin in particular are such roadblocks to progress, I think could potentially help put the pressure on.
Yeah, and I don't really think, I mean, when you forget the details for a second, people get like, will progressives block this? Will progressives fight? That's really what it's about. Yes, the details matter. What's in the package matters, but it is wonky in terms of like what needs to happen for this to happen. But I think the top line is these progressives said they're bringing the ruckus to the Democratic Party. Now is the time to bring that ruckus. And if you don't, listen, there's been a whole debate on the progressive left. What should we call them? Sellouts, frauds, cowards, whatever. Jen and I have never really gotten into that, and we've stated why. But if they cave on this again, I cannot blame people for saying peace out. I just can't. Because if they continue to cave and allow actually good things be consistently watered down or not, I mean, bottom line, you're going to continue to get rolled, exploited, abused. If corporate Democrats know you don't mean it, you're just huffing and puffing, but you're never going to actually follow through. That's just life. That's life. People will not take you seriously. It's like a company, Jen, you ask for more money. You ask for more money. They placate you. We'll talk about it in a few months, this and that. You go say, hey, I have an offer and I'm leaving unless you give me X. And they either do or they don't, but they know like, oh, there's a threat here that we'll lose someone that we might like. So it's a little different, but at the end of the day, same principle. So I'm hoping Jayapal, Roe, I don't think it's too late for them to. I actually think it would not be symbolic. I think it would actually apply pressure if they actually went down to West Virginia or Arizona and shame these people. I don't know why they're not doing it. Just like Biden, I don't know why he's in fetal position with Joe Manchin. Like, you can bend Joe Manchin to your will. You're the president. Plenty of ways you could shame him. Problem is, Biden's donors probably don't want it. And Democratic Party donors probably don't want this price tag or what's in it. So there's also that. Next topic, where we go into something you wanted or Flint?
I mean, let's do Flint. I think this really fires me up, honestly.
Yeah. So keep sharing the live stream. By the way, if you came to this late, Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, we will be having our second members call of the month. We'll have our second members call of the month. It's a lot of fun. We do it through Zoom, usually about 2 hours. Can't wait. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Jen and I answering your questions, comments. We usually share too much that we don't share on the YouTube. So please sign up. Spread the word to sign up. $5 a month. You can become a member, get access to the members only call, as well as other behind the scenes videos. And like Jen and I said, we're trying to figure out some other kind of incentives. To sign up.
I'm pretty fired up about a lot of things kind of off screen these days. So definitely join, because I have a lot to say. StatusCoup.com/join. A lot of people say that this is, they would sign up just for this. And again, you're funding real investigative and on the ground reporting. Colin, if you could pull up our T-mail page quickly. We also just moved recently to a sustainable, ethical merch company where you can buy t-shirts and other items. We'll be adding additional items and additional designs, but you can check that out and feel great because you're buying ethically and you're supporting Status Coup. So that's statuscoup.tmail.com. statuscoup.tmail.com.
Right. So I want to get to, before we get to this Washington Post travesty, I want to remind people, because a lot of people might not know this. Only Status Coup OGers would know this. Colin, if you could pull up that Mediaite piece, headline Alyssa Milano, blah, 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 blah. So we've obviously been covering Flint for many years. We 2 months ago broke a massive story in The Intercept. Basically, we proved and found evidence that the former governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, his top officials, destroyed evidence, tampered with evidence, obstructed justice in the Flint criminal investigation. Surprisingly, no Michigan or national media has covered it. We're not going to give up, but that's the truth. It's really a bombshell story if you read it. In a normal world, it should be on front pages everywhere. But years ago, one of the first big stories we broke together was basically we knocked on nearly 500 doors in Flint, and we found that the state of Michigan under Governor Snyder was cheating on the water testing, basically manipulating the numbers to declare the water safe in Flint, shut down the remaining free water stations around the city, and basically crisis over. Let's get back to business of gentrifying Flint. What we found was the state of Michigan, the environmental department, was going into residents' homes, running their water right before they took the test, like not the night before, like the day of, a few minutes before, collecting the lead and copper sample. They just ran the residents' water, which is breaking EPA regulations for testing. You're basically flushing out potentially high levels of lead and copper, and then voila, we have low numbers and could declare the water fine. We were actually going to publish the story for Newsweek, which we had to really hold our tongue to deal with them, a corporate outlet. But shockingly, they killed it the week of for reasons that still smell very fishy. But
Newsweek, I still want my investigative binder back that I took some time to put together for your 20-year-old editor that you had on the piece.
Right. So basically, in a nutshell, they cheated on the water testing. They manipulated the data. They manipulated the way they tested, and they got lower lead levels as a result. And those numbers are the numbers that many other media outlets have referenced. And you've seen story after story over the years. Reuters did a story. 3,000 cities have higher lead levels than Flint. And by the way, those cities do have high lead levels. We're not minimizing other cities with water problems. There's plenty of them. But there's always been this kind of like framing in the mainstream corporate media. There's a lot of other cities with worse lead levels than Flint. And what Jen and I proved, if you could put it back up, Colin, we don't actually know the real lead levels in Flint because they cooked the books. They cooked the testing. And scroll down, Colin. I mean, I'm not fond of most of these people, but Alyssa Milano called for an investigation in this story. Susan Sarandon called for an investigation. Tulsi Gabbard, when she wasn't a hack, called for this investigation.
Oh, God, man.
Khanna, who we've talked about today, called for an investigation. Like Congress called for an investigation. Celebrities reacted. Of course, the media didn't cover it. So the most important thing is 7.5 years later, there's no way to know what the real lead levels are because they cooked the testing, which we proved. Nobody has ever challenged our reporting on it. In fact, the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, on tape, in a video, in an interview, publicly acknowledged that the testing was done wrong. Yet all these other outlets somehow frame things as X amount of other cities have worse lead levels than Flint, which I don't know why are you comparing it? Like, it's not a contest. Right. That's kind of like minimizing Flint's levels. And B,
yeah, it's like more children are dying here than are dying there. Like,
right.
Okay.
But B, there are children right now in Flint and adults. Most of them still don't drink the water, but those who can't afford bottled water are drinking that water, and we don't know what's in it. And that's the truth. We do not know what's in it. The ongoing testing done by the city of Flint, based on the people we know there, isn't worth the paper it's written on. It's an extremely low sample size. I don't even know how they're testing. They might be flushing too. And it's a very small sample size of homes that are testing.
Even with this testing and the so-called declarations, Colin, if you could pop up the article that I just sent you. This is from 2 weeks ago, guys. 5 properties in Flint recently test above federal action levels for lead and copper. So 5 properties in the city of Flint recently tested well above the federal action level for lead and copper levels in water. Those properties include 2 homes, 2 businesses, and a church. While nearly all of the city's home water lines have been replaced, by the way, that is very misleading because there are also mains and the pipes in the home, which are important.
That were not replaced.
No, we're not replaced. Yes, thank you. Lead and copper levels in the city's water system have dropped considerably, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't necessarily mean the city's 81,000 residents. By the way, in the last census, it dropped by 20,000 people, which is not okay. Caveat. And it also doesn't mean the problem has been eradicated. Anywhere that there is lead lines, this can be happening in any city and any location. Indeed. And that's Michael Brown, City of Flint, Director of Public Works, which we could say more about him. In these specific instances of high levels of lead and copper, Brown says non-water use is likely a contributing factor. So a church along Chevrolet Avenue recently tested just shy of 3,500 parts per billion for lead and 5,250 parts per billion for copper. So that is just, I don't need to read this whole thing because we do have a lot to get to, but that is just a very small sample size of what's still happening in Flint. That is enormous. At the time of the Flint water crisis, it was 15 parts per billion that was like the so-called limit. And but actually for health, the limit of lead is 0. So to have in the thousands parts per billion of lead is obscene. This crisis is not over.
And by the way, just to really make sure you guys understand it, there's 3 sources of pipes. The only pipes they've changed are the service lines,
and not even completely.
Which are the water pipes from the curb to the valve entering your home. So that's just one piece. The main pipes underneath the street, they haven't changed, even though they've been busting and breaking all over Flint because they're corroded, as well as the interior pipes in the home, which the last mayor of Flint was begging the Democratic governor who made a lot of promises to Flint, Gretchen Whitmer, who was going to be the savior after getting rid of the poisoner, Governor Snyder. And she asked for money from the state to fix people's damaged interior plumbing. It's not like the interior home plumbs weren't corroded from the toxic water coming in for 18 months. And they are likely leaching off not just lead, but other heavy metals. So Governor Whitmer told the former mayor, the state legislature has Flint fatigue, so I can't help you. So now,
and by the way, it's not just lead pipes, it's also galvanized, which can actually be worse, just so folks know.
Right. So now that we've established that I think it's grossly irresponsible for media, others to just declare, oh, Flint's meeting the EPA regulations. Well, if you actually read our story, they fucking cheated on the testing. Then you have this Washington Post story. All these outlets, isn't it interesting, Jen? They don't have
time to cover Flint, right, Jordan? That's what I've heard.
But Colin, if you could put it up, the Washington Post Flint story. Isn't it interesting that all these outlets seem to allot resources to these kinds of stories, but can't be bothered to cover the cover-up that we are breaking, massive government cover-up? They can't be bothered to actually expose the cover-up, but they'll do these kind of like, there's so many stories about rebuilding trust. The water's fine, but the trust needs to be rebuilt. So I want to read some of this because it's just crazy. Headline: Flint has replaced over 10,000 lead pipes. Earning back trust is proving harder. Is this the same story? Because the headline's different.
Yeah, there's a Washington Post story. There's a Guardian story that's talking about Benton Harbor.
Oh, because I'm reading Flint has replaced over 10,000 lead pipes. Earning back trust is proving harder.
In what though?
Yeah, I sent you that one, Colin, if you have it.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I can also talk about the fact that one of the things that infuriates me is the kind of rhetoric where folks are like, well, this place is worse than Flint. This place is worse than Flint. This place is worse than Flint. And it's like nobody actually knows what Flint's levels are. And nobody is bothered to look into the levels of corruption. As Jordan says, it's like peeling the layers of an onion. You peel back one layer and you find another. So this is not just a matter of old pipes. This is a matter of a majority Black, poor city being caught up in, I mean, it's even hard to summarize, like a privatization scheme of water, profiteering, racism. It's a lot. So I kind of get defensive almost. Obviously, we're very protective of the truth about Flint and like having people, other journalists and outlets report the facts and the truth. So the framing, there's a Guardian article, once again, that's speaking about Benton Harbor, which is in Flint, which is a majority Black city. And it is a very important story, but it can be a very important story without saying, well, this place is worse off than Flint, which I think is really damaging to Flint because Flint is not fixed by any means. And we've shown that through our reporting.
Absolutely. Colin, do you have it? I sent it to you. Yeah, having trouble grabbing it with the block. 1 second. Jen, you could get in that archive, right?
What's the link or what's the title?
Flint has replaced over 10,000 lead pipes. Earning back trust is proving harder. And by the way, there's been a variety of this story in like so many outlets. It's like the same story, just repackaged over and over and over again. And like, no, the water's fine. It's just about the trust. It's just about the trust. And I'm going to put my money on that the people who wrote this story probably haven't been to Flint or didn't go to Flint for this story. Because if you went to Flint for the story, you might very quickly learn, no, there's actually a water problem still. It's not just a trust issue. There's a water problem. So I would very much like to know if they went to Flint, but I'm not holding my breath. I will say, just based on our experience, it says photos by Brittany Greason.
She did the photos on our story.
Yeah, Brittany Greason did the photos for our Vice story. No problem with her. So maybe she went to Flint to get these photos. That doesn't mean they're...
I think she's in Detroit.
Yeah, she's in Detroit. But yeah, she obviously went to Flint to get these photos. I'm not sure the reporters went, because if you just talk to residents, you might find there's actually more of a trust issue. There's a water issue. So now that you have it up, Flint has replaced over 10,000 lead pipes. Earning back trust is proving harder. So right there, before we even get to the story, Jen, that's inaccurate. It's out of context. As we've said, they're only changing one set of pipes.
One of the three. There were three.
As Harold Harrington, who's part of this story, he's a union plumber, has won awards. I've spoken to them many times. They didn't change the galvanized pipes, which have lead. They're only changing the service lines from the curb into the house. So not the busted, toxic, corroded pipes underneath the street, not people's toxic, corroded pipes inside their home. It's like Jesus could bless the water and send it through the brand new service lines. But if it gets into your house and your pipes in your house are still corroding, you're still going to get lead. I mean, this is not complicated, but from the beginning, the state of Michigan, who did not want to pay for this, Snyder was kicking and screaming to not pay for these service lines. The only reason the state had to pay for the service lines is because of a massive civil lawsuit by Flint residents, pastors, the ACLU, to get the state to pay for those new pipes. The state also won't change the interior plumbing because they say that's the resident's responsibility. Well, the resident didn't poison the water pipes inside their home.
So infuriating.
Already the Washington Post, Democracy Dies in Darkness, is wrong. Let's read a little. Never again can we allow what happened in Flint, Michigan, President Biden said on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon this August inside the East Room of the White House. The admonition came as the president touted a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure deal that just cleared the Senate He spoke of rebuilding the nation's roads and bridges, boosting public transit, and constructing electric vehicle charging stations, and replacing pipes, lots of pipes. So let's move forward a little bit in this story. Now this once poisoned city is on the brink of a milestone. A lead water pipe removal program established under a 2017 court order issued as part of a massive lawsuit on behalf of Flint residents is inching towards a close. Block by block, house by house, the city and its contractors have excavated and checked more than 27,000 pipes to determine what hidden risks remain under the ground. The effort has led the city to replace more than 10,000 lead pipes so far, officials say. So it's not like that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. But this is very much like Bush, mission accomplished, and basically hoping you guys don't understand plumbing or even care to look. Just assume, oh, they changed these pipes, all good, everything's fine. It also doesn't, Jen, and this is a little in the weeds. Flint is a city, its water system was originally built for 250,000 residents. Flint right now, I think the most recent census is closer to 80,000. So
yeah, again, they dropped 20,000 people since the last census.
Right. A lot of people have left during this water crisis.
Well, and died. And died. Otherwise.
So you have a massive water system for way over half the people, way less than half the people, or for way less people. So you have water that just sits, and a lot of water that's stagnant because it's just sitting there through abandoned homes, empty lots, the whole nine. So there's also a problem of stagnant water, and when you have stagnant water, the chemicals that are added into the water to avoid bacteria, corrosion, they start getting stripped out if the water is not moving, which creates a bacteria problem. So
one of our sources, who's very knowledgeable in this area, for example, on this point, noted that it took 30 days for the water to reach the water plant to her home. And of course, chlorine treatments, etc., are dissipated by then, which is chlorine can help prevent Legionella, etc.
Yeah.
So if it's gone and dangerous.
Right. So basically the Washington Post, and by the way, it's not just the Washington Post. I have seen a version of this story in many different outlets, basically pushing the framing, which by the way, has been pushed to them by City of Flint and others. No, it's just a trust issue. The water's fine. Mind you, those elected officials drink bottled water. The water's so fine that they drink bottled water. But it's like the Amazon executives who they have air conditioning in the warehouses. Yeah. The workers don't. So a little more. While other communities await the funding and the political will to overhaul crumbling water infrastructure, this monumental undertaking has demonstrated that it's possible for cities to rid themselves of the lingering health risks running into their homes, that years from now, there could be a day when parents in America no longer need to worry. So again, framing is all good that we're replacing just one set of the 3 sets of pipes that need to be changed. So
yeah, and so the message is kind of okay, but not in this context. Like, yeah, there is a world years from now where there could be a day when parents in America no longer need to worry that the water in their taps might poison their children. But that day is not today. And it's going to take infrastructure bills and things like that to eradicate this. And attaching this on the backs of Flint is disgusting because Flint is not fixed.
Right. Colin, if you could move down to, they went through, a couple residents. Caroline Tyrus, age 65. If I get the opportunity to leave, I'm leaving, said Tyus, a homeowner who moved back to Flint in 2014 from Texas. What a time to move back to Flint. That was the year they switched the water and all this started. A retired medical receptionist and one of the plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit over the water failures, Tyus said she suffered hair loss she believed was a result of showering in the contaminated Flint water. That's another framing. She believes it was a result of showering in the contaminated water. Well, what do you think it was, Washington Post? You think thousands of people in Flint were losing their hair because, I don't know, drought? Like, it's this framing that's also always like, well, could have been from... I mean, it's ridiculous. She lost her hair because she was drinking contaminated water, and bathing in the acid water. That's why they were losing their hair. I digress. She has found the pipe replacement program to be complicated and confusing. She recalls that crews came to dig in front of her home nearly 2 years ago, but she said they put in only what looked to be a connector on her line. She didn't see anything replaced or removed and has struggled to understand how to make sure she has no lead lines still running to her home. This is a key part. Taya said she still notices what appears to be mineral deposits coming from her water. She goes to her daughter's home in the suburbs to shower and relies on bottled and filtered water for drinking and cooking. So Washington Post story, Jen, everything's dandy. It's just a trust issue. This woman's talking about mineral deposits in her home. Oh, by the way, my fault. I should have sent it to you, Colin, to play. We recently did a video in Flint. I mean, we had, I don't know, what was it? 10 to 15 people for an interview. And a lot of them were still showing their active rashes they were getting from the water, losing hair still from the water. Like, these are residents living there now with rashes, still losing hair.
I urge everybody to watch that. It was incredibly impactful. Especially if you've been watching for years, because a lot of these people you've maybe seen on our streams, in particular Jordan's work, even back from TYT, and you can see the decline in health.
So I guess the Washington Post, just little old us just goes there and reaches out to residents, get them together in one place, and you find all sorts of things to show you the water's just not fine. But the Washington Post talks to a couple people and pushes framing that mission accomplished. It's just a trust issue.
Well, and they're also missing some additional points. And along with us saying only in some homes, not even all homes, have service lines been replaced, but not mains and not in-home plumbing. But also there have been several scandals that have basically not made a splash at all. There was a company that was found to be dumping industrial waste into the Flint River during, in 2014. And this was only, breaking news as of 2020, I believe. And the EPA actually just won an award for looking into this. Great job, guys. That was 2014. This is 2021 now. That was 2020. Great job. So that was the water, the improperly treated water that Flint residents were drinking, had dumping of industrial waste in it. Today, and Jordan interviewed the former most recent mayor of Flint, Karen Weaver, and she speaks about the mains breaking constantly. There are constant main breaks. There was a story the other day, sewage is seeping out like crazy. And this happened a bit ago, but has only just been publicized. Also, and Jordan, you're working more on some of the background of this, but they're switching the water again. So there's a lot to this, and I am horrified by the Washington Post framing. Yeah,
and I just want to go down a little further. So the first woman they quote mineral deposits. So why is the headline what it is? Like, the actual story doesn't actually support the framing you're putting out, and this goes across the media. It's the headline and the sub headline and the first few paragraphs. That's the story basically, and that's what gets picked up.
Yeah.
So let's go down a little further. Hold on. Let me find the person I wanted to find. Here we go.
Smash the like button.
Aaron Neely, 28. Neely works as a data collector for Flint Registry, a project that connects people to city services and other health and wellness programs, and works to understand how the water crisis has affected the community. A father of two whose younger daughter was born during the disaster, he still relies on bottled water, even though he recently had his own water service line replaced. Neely has refused to pay his water bill since 2015, arguing that he can't rely on the water from his tap. Good for you. Neely said he is among the residents who would like to see the city help with the secondary problems that tainted water caused in homes, such as damage to appliances and internal pipes. Quote, more people are concerned about getting their pipes inside the home replaced Quote, their pipes were destroyed by a city problem, but now the responsibility to fix it is on the residents, which is totally unfair. Colin, go back to the headline. Flint has replaced over 10,000 lead pipes, but trust needs to come back.
Oh my God, I'm so mad.
Meaning the water's fine. The infrastructure's fine. Everything's being replaced. Meanwhile, the Washington Post's own story is quoting residents who's, I have mineral deposits in my water. I need to go to my daughter's home in the suburbs to take a shower. Another younger guy, 28, is making the point, Jen, myself, and the last mayor of Flint, and any fucking engineer who's not bought off would make. Yeah, no, just changing the lead service lines is not enough. You need to replace people's damaged interior plumbing, which they don't want to do because it would cost, I mean, you're talking a lot of money to change interior plumbing, possibly a lot of money. You're talking hundreds of, possibly, I don't even know, tens of millions, maybe more than that. So it's the residents, can't the Washington Post with their resources reach out to a plumber or an engineer and be like, hey, they're telling us we changed the lead service pipe, so everything's good. But is there anything more to it? Because they would tell you, no, there's a lot more that needs to be done, which brings me down to Harold Harrington, age 60, who I've interviewed over and over again.
Nice guy.
Quote, you could replace the lead lines. That's just the start. So what we're saying, this is coming from a union plumber who has won awards. 30 years. UA Local 370 plumbers and pipe fitters. You can replace the lead lines. That's just the start. He and others did volunteer work several years starting in 2015 to install water filters, deliver bottled water, and replace faucets in Flint homes. He lived in the city for a time during the water crisis, but later moved. Like with other Flint residents, the line to his home had lead, and he didn't want his grandkids coming over and being exposed to water that was potentially dangerous. Harrington said the pipe replacements have been a positive start and a necessary undertaking, but it's not the end of the story. Lead remains inside older homes in plumbing fixtures and galvanized pipes. What did I say about interior plumbing? In older homes, in plumbing fixtures and galvanized pipes. Renters remain in a tough spot if property owners, excuse me, if property owners haven't taken the initiative to make updates. There are ongoing problems as well. With so many people having left Flint over time, the water system is now too big for its population, leading to water that languishes in pipes, what we said 10 minutes ago. Quote, so many people moved out and so many plants shut down. Quote, this system is so oversized, the water sits in these main pipes too long and it loses its chemicals. And now you've got a problem with bacteria. Also, besides lead, Harrington warned other cities could face similar fates. This could happen anywhere. The lead pipes that are in the ground are never going to go away. They'll last forever unless you take them out and replace them. So, bottom line, number one, the data that the Washington Post is basing your reporting on was manipulated, cooked. They cheated. We proved it, but you won't cover it because they don't seem to want to cover that this is still a crisis. They don't want to frame it that way. They want to frame it in the way that the state of Michigan framed it under Snyder and Whitmer, by the way, and the way that the city of Flint. None of the water's fine. It's testing normal. It's just a trust issue. Got to rebuild trust. Well, go ask the people still getting rashes if it's a trust issue. Go ask the people still losing hair. Go ask the people who have told us their eyes burn when they shower. A trust issue. Yeah. I mean,
I honestly, I think it's unethical to write a piece like this and not reference the issues that I spoke about just a little bit ago. Those are major issues. It's unethical to not bring them into the conversation. If you are writing a legitimate, like a piece from a place of truth and meaning well, clearly that's not the case.
And by the way, Jen, the Washington Post has gotten back to us before acknowledging receipt of our stories about the cover-up and choosing not to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I can't pin this on them specifically, but over and over we hear that the Flint fatigue line, and said in various ways, and the lack of resources to cover this, etc. But it seems like they're more than willing to cover Flint when it suits the narrative, when they're able to like compare it to something else, and so on. It really turns my stomach.
Absolutely. So that's just one story. Colin, if you could go to the other story, this was about, I think the headline, a black town's water is more poison than Flint's. In a white town nearby, it's clean. This is from The Guardian, if you have that one, Colin. So a few things. We always say things aren't mutually exclusive. So number one, we're saying they are making comparisons that the 3,000 other cities have worse lead levels than Flint, basically taking fake numbers from Flint and comparing it to other cities. We don't know if these other cities have higher or lower levels than Flint, because you can't trust the numbers in Flint, as we reported and we proved. Putting that aside, we're not minimizing these other cities. If we had a broom, we'd go everywhere.
I'd love to go to Benton Harbor and investigate this for sure.
There's a ton of other cities with water problems, lead, PFAS, which are cancer-causing chemicals. Chromium, arsenic.
I want to dig into DuPont, affecting water in various ways.
We're not saying, no, there's not other crises going on, but we could only do so much. We're two people. And we have always made the point that Flint is much bigger than Flint. It's about the whole country. So that's why we stay particularly on Flint. But again, The Guardian, another place who has passed on doing reporting with us, even though we had bombshell stuff, they have
in fact yelled at us, just as a little side note. You could hear more about this potentially on our members call, statuscoup.com/join. Jordan wrote, an editor at The Guardian, and mentioned, we really, after a rejection, essentially was like, this is so important, like it really needs to be covered. And I got a personalized message after that, saying that Jordan needed to back off for essentially fighting for Flint. So that's the vibe.
Oh yeah, because these editors don't like to be challenged. They're basically called corrupt or anything like that, which, I say too bad. But The Guardian has also, The Guardian's done some good reporting on Flint, but The Guardian has also, basically done a lot of peripheral stories, not on the cover-up, but about trust and justice, environmental justice. I'm not saying those don't matter, but it's not the main story. And they don't seem interested in the main story, which is, this is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century, and we do not know what people are drinking. We don't know if the water is safe for them to drink right now. But the framing of this, if you want to tackle this one, Jen,
sure.
They talk about a black town's water is more poison than Flint. In a white town nearby, it's clean. This story would be fine and accurate if you stopped with the misleading framing that this city has worse levels than Flint, when we don't know what the levels are in Flint.
It doesn't need to diminish Flint to get its point across. So Colin, if you can pop that back up. A black town's water is more poison than Flint's. In a white town nearby, it's clean. I can think of a million ways to better phrase that headline and still get the point across. Bobby Clay first realized something was wrong a few years ago. The water at her Benton Harbor, Michigan home had started coming out of the tap looking bubbly and whitish. When she filled a glass with it, she could see matter floating around inside. I became very concerned, she recalled in a recent interview. She wasn't alone. For years, residents of this small, struggling city in southwest Michigan had been having similar problems. When Carmela Patton turned on her sink to make coffee, the water came out brown. When Emma Kennard ran hers, it came out the color of tea and sizzling like Alka-Seltzer. Rasta Smith said his water looked normal, but had a horrible taste and a smell that reminded him of rotting sewage. It's bad, man, he said. It's real bad. Goes on to say, some immediately began buying bottled water and encouraging friends and family to do the same. Others would continue to use the tap water for years, and in many cases still do. When residents raised questions and concerns, they said, officials in the city and county were unresponsive. Finally, in 2018, they found out what was going on. tap water samples tested that summer revealed lead levels of 22 parts per billion. So once again, the Jordan, is it still 15 or did they change it?
It's 15.
Okay. Yeah. So the acceptable level, according to the EPA, and there are talks of changing this to 0, which is the actual acceptable level, but 15 parts per billion is the like threshold for when it becomes unacceptable in the eyes of the EPA. So if you
By the way,
recall,
the EPA is massively corrupt, and I don't trust them.
Of course it is. It's incredibly corrupt, which is insane that they won this award in Flint. It's just totally nuts. But if you'll recall the article that I just referenced from 2 weeks ago, there are spots in Flint that have thousands of parts per billion of lead. So this article is just total BS. Not to diminish, once again, what these folks are struggling with. So again, 22 parts per billion, well over the federal lead action level of 15 parts per billion and higher. Even then, the 20 parts per billion nearby Flint average at the height of the crisis that made that city a national symbol of environmental injustice. That is really horrible framing, saying that at the height of the Flint water crisis, it was only 20 parts per billion is dramatically underplaying what happened. Dramatically. This is disgusting. I don't know what your thoughts on that particular line are. I'm so like seeing red. I don't even know what to say.
What was the line again?
That so that Benton Harbor has some homes. Pull it back up, Colin. I don't know if it says some homes or average of homes. 20 parts per billion. Water samples tested that summer revealed lead levels. So it doesn't say even an average. So they're saying in Benton Harbor, homes are found with lead levels of 22 parts per billion. And that at the height of the Flint water crisis, it was only 20 parts per billion.
Well, first of all, there's lies, and statistics.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Right. So, I mean, we took a tour of Flint. We found a lot of homes with way more than 20 parts per billion. Actually, we found one home with 11,000 parts per billion. Yet 1 week it was 11,000 parts per billion. Then they come out and test it. Voila, it's like 15 parts per billion. Not possible. The line wasn't changed.
Magic.
So there was a lot of manipulating of testing, as we said. But yeah, I mean, they could say on average, Flint had 20 parts per billion, but all over Flint, it was astronomically higher. Again, not to say Benton Harbor doesn't have a problem. They clearly do. But it's this framing. The story could have been fine by saying, hey, this black town over here has a massive lead problem, and the white town 5 minutes down the street doesn't. Why is that? You didn't need to bring Flint into it. Because it's not just bad framing, it's false. It's inaccurate. You don't know what the true numbers are in Flint. So stop trying to minimize it by
bad reporting,
pointing out other cities with higher lead levels. Well, I'd venture to guess if you had a truly independent water tester going through Flint, not testing 50 homes in Flint, testing 500 homes in Flint, all equally distributed all over Flint, because they were also manipulating it by testing more homes in areas with newer homes and newer pipes, testing homes in area that had copper pipes. Yep. So if you did accurate water testing with an actual independent, and by the way, the word independent is kind of loose. A lot of them have grants from the state that they're testing in, or the EPA. I'd venture to guess they might be singing a different tune about how safe Flint's water.
And there were folks in Flint who were doing water testing that were highly lauded that were complete frauds. So you really have to sort through it to get to truth.
Right. So bottom line, it's dishonest and it's dangerous because, again, it sets this false narrative that the water is fine now. So there are children drinking that water. There are adults drinking that water. And it's not fine. And frankly, to me, there's a coordinated cover-up, not just from the Snyder administration, but from the media to cover up the cover-up. I mean, we could only do so much. We have as they say, we have gotten the goods. We've broken 3 stories in a year and a half now, showing the governor lied about when he knew about the water crisis and actively hid from residents who were drinking it that the water was toxic, stopped that from going public while he could have saved lives. We broke that his top advisor and henchman basically was going around Flint offering payoffs to sick Flint residents. We found that the governor was more involved than he let on in the shady financial deal that led to this Flint water crisis. We found the prosecutors found Snyder's phone calls with his chief of staff and health director. They concluded those phone calls, they spoke 22 times in 2 days in the fall of 2014, right before Snyder's reelection. And the prosecutors concluded they were on the phone trying to stop news of the deadly Legionnaires outbreak, the bacterial disease that killed a lot of people, from going public before Snyder's reelection. And this most recent story, we found destruction of evidence, tampering of evidence, and obstruction of justice. So we've given the goods. The media in Michigan and nationally have chosen, I don't even want to say ignore it, bury it.
Yeah.
And that's a whole scandal that I'd love an answer to.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. I mean, we'll pop back into the article for a bit, but when I was really down and out sick with COVID, long hauler COVID, Jordan drove both ways by himself for 9 hours, 9.5 hours, whatever it was, to get a scoop, many scoops on Flint by himself. Because that's how much he cares. Jordan, what are you up to now? 18, 19 times in Flint?
18.
I think I'm up to 8 or 9. I'll have to look. But are you serious? I've gone twice without you, sir. Okay. We'll have a tally. We'll have a running tally. But to go, especially for Jordan, because he wants that pat on the head. No, just kidding. No, truly, like Jordan has done more than anybody on Flint, including me. As much as, my heart bleeds for Flint constantly. I have every book ever written about Flint. Like I constantly am thinking about the folks in Flint. So to have that and to know so much, Jordan's a walking encyclopedia of everything that's ever happened in Flint. He can tell you it all. So to have that plus the human connection, to have interviewed the same folks for several years and see them getting sicker and sicker, to then see lies in the mainstream media and then folks who then take that as gospel and start spreading it around is really frustrating. We're obviously very close to this. We're obviously, biased in favor of like finding truth about Flint. So it fires us up a lot more than it might others. But I cannot stand for this at all. It just drives me insane. It's so infuriating.
And by the way, I mean, just to break this down, because sometimes, you put Flint in a headline and whatever, maybe people it doesn't connect with them. Jordan needs to let you drive, Jen. No, I actually drove myself.
I hate driving, but no.
But I drove myself because you were sick.
Yeah. No, I wasn't on that trip, which I'm devastated about. I really wanted to go, but physically because of COVID and long hauler, I could not go. But Jordan cares that much that he drove the entire way.
And just a point. Not going to say much about
this. Is this against me?
No. Just a point. To those folks who like to email us occasionally, I'm canceling my membership because I don't like your take on X. Go find the people to support that are driving 10 hours back and forth.
Yeah.
For a story.
Yeah.
I'd like you to find the people that have, through holidays, time away from their family, time away from their wife in the first year of marriage, have gone to Flint, Michigan, to continue digging on this. Go support those people because I know there's plenty of them out there. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, but that's part of why it's so frustrating for us, not just on Flint, but in general. Like, I think a lot of people don't, and it's not kudos to us. It's because we're driven. Like, this is what we're called to do. Not to give like a I feel like that's like the Christian cult language I grew up with, but truly I feel called to be a journalist, to shine a light on truth and to leave the earth better than I found it, to help people with truth as much as I can. And so to see folks like putting that down or like getting mad about it like a political take when Jordan's driving 9.5 hours to go report the truth on Flint is very, very infuriating and sad and frustrating for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Colin, if you can pop that article back up, we'll keep going through it. Let's see here. But for the last 3 years, neither the city of Benton Harbor, the county, nor the state have taken sufficient action, according to an emergency appeal filed recently by the NRDC, which has really been helpful to Flint folks as well. The petition, which calls on the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to address the crisis and assist residents in the meantime, states that lead levels have consistently tested well above the federal action limit, with recordings as high in some samples as 889 parts per billion, nearly 60 times the action limit. And again, it's not a freaking competition, but Flint levels still test in the thousands. So this framing is so stupid. The health risks posed to the residents of this mostly Black, poverty-stricken city, which also happens to be the corporate headquarters of Whirlpool. I assume that's oh no, that's Kenmore. So Whirlpool, like making dishwashers and stuff, I guess, are extraordinary. Children with lead poisoning tend to have lower IQs, high rates of attention deficit disorder, poor memory, and a lack of impulse control. As they become adults, they are also at higher risk for kidney disease, stroke, and hypertension. Studies have also connected lead exposure to incarceration for violent crime. And if you'll notice, it's horrible. I get constant alerts about like everything that happens in Flint, and the crime rates, the shootings are very, very high. And this is, historically, lead poisoning is part of the reason for violence and mental health. And it can take upwards of 5 years more for the full effects to start to show.
Yep. So, honestly, if we had more time, we could go through many other stories that were comparing other cities to Flint and this and that. But again, I don't know how many times to say it. We've been on this for years. We'll continue covering Flint. It's not over. It's not just a crisis about one city. It's a crisis of government. It's a crisis of humanity. It's corruption like you've never seen before. We haven't even reported half of what we know, to tell you the truth. So yeah, it's really, really vile. And
that's one of the hardest things, I think, as a journalist is to know certain things that you just can't yet report, and to know that things are so much worse than the public knows, and to have to, to sort through all that is really a challenge.
Right.
And on top of that, to see lies and spin.
Yep. So we'll stay on it. Did you want to do one more topic real quick, or?
Sure.
Real quick.
Sure. Yeah,
because I got a moldy.
You're acting like I'm the one who has a freaking.
Oh, you said you had a list of topics, so.
I do. I sent them to Colin. Okay. Let's see. What?
Also, we will read your super chats, so keep them coming.
Let's do. I don't want to do the. Let's do the technology review one, Colin, about Facebook. So Facebook, as you guys are well aware, is a real powerhouse of corruption. And in particular, they seem to like to push right-wing BS. Ben Shapiro regularly appears in the topmost posts all the time. So Trumpers and folks railing against the so-called like liberal bias are completely and absolutely incorrect. But apart from Facebook itself being corrupt, there's a lot of fakeness out there, astroturfing, networks designed to lead people astray. So this is out of Technology Review. by Karen Howe, I guess you say her name. So troll farms reached 140 million Americans a month on Facebook before the 2020 election. And to be clear, my point in this is not just to be like, oh, you know, Russiagate impacted the 2016 election or the 2020 election, whatever. No, what I mean to show with what they're reporting here is that this is a real issue that I think everybody around the world needs to be aware of, that those you're following are not necessarily real and are not necessarily, you know, aligned with your interests. If you can pop that back up.
Oh, I thought you were done. Yeah, go ahead.
On the eve of the 2020 election, the most highly contested in US history, Facebook's most popular pages for Christian and Black American content were being run by Eastern European troll farms. These pages were part of a larger network that collectively reached nearly half of all Americans. Half of all Americans, according to an internal company report, and achieved that reach not through user choice, but primarily as a result of Facebook's own platform design and engagement-hungry algorithm. The company's AI algorithms give it an insatiable habit for lies and hate speech. Now the man who built them can't fix the problem. The report, written in October 2019 and obtained by MIT Technology Review from a former Facebook employee not involved in researching it, found that after the 2016 election, Facebook failed to prioritize fundamental changes to how its platform promotes and distributes information. Continue on, Colin, if you can, because I don't have it pulled up. I'm just reading it from here. This approach did little to stem the underlying problem. Troll farms were still building massive audiences by running networks of Facebook pages with their content reaching 140 million US users per month, 75% of whom had never followed any of the pages. They were seeing the content because Facebook's content recommendation system had pushed it into their news feeds. Scroll down, please, Colin. Let's see. So, of course, Facebook is making excuses. Go ahead and scroll down. They show examples in this report, so I urge everybody to find it. The report found that troll farms were reaching the same demographic group singled out by the Kremlin-backed Internet Research Agency during the 2016 election, which had targeted Christians, Black Americans, and Native Americans. A 2018 BuzzFeed News investigation found that at least one member of the Russian IRA had also visited Macedonia around the emergence of the first troll farms. Go ahead and scroll down. Scroll down. Allen wrote the report as the fourth and final installment of a year-and-a-half-long effort to understand troll farms. The report reveals the alarming state of affairs in which Facebook leadership left the platform for years, despite repeated public promises. So let's look at the revelations. As of October 2019, around 15,000 Facebook pages with a majority US audience were being run out of Kosovo and Macedonia, known bad actors during the 2016 election. Collectively, these troll farm pages, which the report treats as a single page for comparison purposes, reach 140 million US users monthly and 360 million global users weekly. Walmart's page reached the second largest US audience at 100 million. The troll farm pages also combined to form the largest Christian American page on Facebook, 20 times larger than the next largest, reaching 75 million US users monthly. The largest African American page on Facebook, 3 times larger than the next largest. The second largest Native American page on Facebook, reaching 400,000 users monthly. The fifth largest women's page on Facebook, reaching 60 million US users monthly. Troll farms primarily affect the US. So you guys can read the full report. That's again in Technology Review. My kind of takeaway from this is not to, relitigate Russiagate 2016 or anything like that. It has always been extraordinarily clear, especially if you study the history of propaganda, especially between different countries, especially the countries who are not our allies, this is what happens. We, of course, do the same to them. My point is that we all need to be extraordinarily aware of who we follow and what we pay attention to, because it's so easy for those who study best practices in social media, best practices in psychological manipulation, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, etc., to sway folks and to put information out there that is not in your best interest. And Facebook, of course, has a responsibility for this. I think Facebook should be publicly, handled. I don't know what your take is, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, this goes well beyond the dangerous Russian trolls. I mean, you had these troll farms and stuff during Bernie Hillary. I mean, David Brock, Democratic Party, had their army of trolls. Frankly, I think Neera Tanden, back in her day of mean girl tweeting, she had a troll farm that she was dispatching. I think there are other Democratic Party operatives that have troll farms to prop them up. I mean, you name it. I mean, corporations have troll farms. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the truth is you don't know really who's tweeting or who they are or what they are. I look sometimes and I'm in a fight with someone on Twitter and I look and it's like, the account was recently made. It has like 5 followers. And then I'm like, oh shit.
You're like, oh, it's not. Yeah. It's not legit.
So yeah.
I want to address this before
I think some people would look at what you're saying and be like, oh, stop fear mongering. You're Russiagating. No, I mean, we've been pretty clear that Russiagate is bullshit, but that doesn't mean that there's not like a shadow internet.
Russiagate is bullshit because of course they did that. Of course they tried to sway people to Trump. Of course they tried to F with our elections. They do all the time, every year since Russia started. And we do the same to them.
Yep. So.
I wanted to address this comment here. Banning speech regardless of trolls seems dangerous. What is dangerous is allowing, you saw the numbers, right? You saw that half of Americans are exposed to this, are exposed to outright lies and propaganda. So what then do we do? Do we put that in the box of like censorship that we would apply to like well-meaning citizens? No, I don't think we do. These are literal farms, astroturfing, like propaganda networks set up to lie and mislead. It's very dangerous. And there's a reason that it works so well, and we need to put a stop to it. If you think of things in terms of, we're progressives, right? So we believe in not me, us. We believe in doing the most good. We believe in helping people. So why would we want half of Americans to be reading outright lies and propaganda? And of course, these trolls do hit on points that are correct. They do hit on the oligarchy. They do hit on racist police in terms of like fake African-American pages, Black American pages. And that's the danger. I'm heavily into studying the history of propaganda, psychology, etc. I do encourage folks to kind of dig into that area to see what's going on. I do encourage you, if you weren't paying attention during 2016, do look into what Hillary Clinton did with David Brock. It's disgusting. It's horrifying. So in thinking of your kind of take on this issue, think about if you think what Hillary Clinton did with David Brock is okay. Let's put it that way.
Right. I mean, it should be a consistent basis, not like, oh, well, some troll farms we don't care about because, it's our narrative. But yeah. So yeah, I completely agree.
Sure.
And it's only going to get worse. I mean,
yeah.
With the advent of, more and more digital media and cyber warfare and, you name it, definitely look who it is you're following, what's trending, if it truly is organic, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's read some super chats. And again, members call Thursday night.
David Brock. So Alex is asking about the Clinton thing. So look for David Brock and Hillary Clinton. David Brock ran an essential troll farm online to AstroTurf, which means like fake supporters, like lies against Bernie, essentially. So definitely look that up if you weren't paying attention. Alex, good question.
Right. So remember, members call Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. Hope to see you on there. Haven't had any member signups today. We need to start juicing up this membership. We're at 1,826. We got to get back over 1,900 and then try and push for 2,000. We've kind of been dangling close to 2,000, then losing, then gaining, then losing. So if it's within your means, sign up, statuscoup.com/join, and join us on the members call Thursday night. So,
and definitely check out statuscoup.tmill.com. We're very proud to now be working with a sustainable merchandise company where you can get Status Coup tees. I'm definitely going to get one of the tie-dye ones. Check it out and join us, statuscoup.com/join. Can't wait to interact with you on our Ask Me Anything members call on Thursday, 6:30. Going to be a real good time. And thank you all for being so understanding about me spraying my hair with sunscreen before the show instead of dry shampoo. What a great progressive crowd you are. What a dumbass I am. My God, who does that?
Let's read some super chats. Andy P, $5. Jen, you look great as always.
Thank you.
Osman, $4.99. Politically homeless, but thankful to have what I have. It's a sad world. I don't know what to make of it. You could find a home right with Status Coup. I know a lot of people feel politically homeless, leaderless, all that. It's okay. Sometimes we have the highs of like a Bernie type campaign and revolution. And sometimes you have the lows of a Biden neoliberal presidency with the corporatist Democrats in control. But we try to stay consistent. So we're glad you're watching. Trevor Wolf, £5. Beer fund for Colin. Better be Guinness and not some Ponce lager.
But Colin actually doesn't drink.
Yeah, he doesn't drink beer, so send that money to me.
He'll have a good. I can't remember what he had the one time. He doesn't drink much at all, but he'll have a nice cocktail, a nice manly cocktail.
But you could have the beer fund for me. That's fine. Lana Del hates the clock. $10. Jen looks great and happy. Belated birthday, Jordan. Why does nobody say?
You guys are
nobody say hi?
Because I told them that I was embarrassed because I sprayed my hair with sunscreen, so they're being nice.
Okay. Well, Jen looks great. Thank you for the birthday wish. Hysteric Raider, $5. Biden knows the donors are behind Manchin all the way, hence why he's afraid to cross him. I think that's a good point. Biden is a creature of the donors, always has been. Genevieve, $4.99. Rev Barber took out several one-page ads in West Virginia papers and has been focusing on West Virginia constituents. I love Reverend Barber.
He's great. He's awesome.
Nava Squad needs to join him. Joshua Jenkins, $5. Thank you. Amber Lee Grego, $5. Do you support a state-by-state effort for Medicare for all along with the national push?
That's a great question. I don't know if you want me to go first, God.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we actually had Whole Washington on, along with Sharif Snuggs of the March for Medicare for All. So there are these different factions. I am of the takeaway that some folks think that a state-by-state, Medicare for all thing takes away from a national. I don't think that. I think that a state-by-state could prove that it works. We can get more nuanced about that at a later time, but I do support a state-by-state effort. I also strongly believe in doing the least harm and doing the most good. So if we can help a certain state right now or very soon, I'm for it.
Absolutely. Honestly, I didn't do that interview. Jen did, as in terms of the state-by-state. I'm not like opposed to it per se. I think it would have been great if it passed in California, for sure. Frankly, it wasn't reported this way, but Pelosi basically tanked that, not just the local politician officials. I wouldn't be against it passing in some states because in some ways we will need to start certain things on the local level. But I think the main push should be on the federal level because it's a very, very popular. It's a very, very popular federal program. with 70% support. So,
but if folks want to push in their own state and nationally, which whole Washington folks seem to be doing, I'm for that. Great.
Yep. Trudy, $5. What do you think Bernie meant by not me, us? I think he meant we had to show up in person when a bill we care about comes up for a vote. That's a great point, Trudy, because, maybe some people don't think the 3.5 trillion is like radical enough. I agree. It's not. It's not Medicare for all, but like we've said, there are a lot of important things in there. But sitting on the sidelines, just saying like, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, I understand that mentality, but like it will help actually get it done if we join and pressure these politicians. You don't have to love the squad or Bernie anymore, whatever, but just kind of sitting on the sidelines and saying, well, I'll wait for it to come. Well, generally activism puts pressure on the progressives to do it. It didn't work in terms of force the vote, but I think it would work in this case. So I think progressives should be loud, active, even protesting outside Manchin's office for this and cinema for this particular deal.
Absolutely. But not me, us in general. I think, a lot of people who are very mad at Bernie for not fighting enough, which I am too. We've called him out and said, you should have fought harder. What happened? We've been very vocal about that. But Bernie, in my opinion, is by no means a sellout. And he always said, not me, us. It's not about Bernie. It's not about Bernie Sanders. It's not about Bernie. He's literally stopped the crowd from chanting that and said, it's not Bernie, it's all of you. And that I think is really the heart of the message. So even though we don't have, I feel like we do need one or multiple, but even though we don't have like the Bernie to kind of be the glue to hold us all together as a progressive movement right now, I do believe that the heart of not me, us is what progressives need to like latch onto. It is all of us at the local levels, at our individual levels that come together to make things better and improve society for each other. And as progressives, we are, of course, supposed to care about everybody else. So I think, as far as showing up in person, absolutely. We can't just rely on or count on folks who are elected. That they've shown that over and over. So yeah, we do need to, we're journalists, so that's not our role, but I do believe strongly in activists showing up and putting pressure on electeds.
I think that, to me, it also means like progress is not going to come from just one leader.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people, unfortunately, got caught up in the revolution and the campaign that if we just get Bernie in there, everything will be, everything will follow suit. And it's going to take a lot more than Bernie or just one set of House members or whatever. So I do agree with broadening it out to outside of electoral politics strategies like economic boycotts, things like that. Where I disagree with people is like one or the other. I don't think there needs to be one or the other. Like if there are candidates that have a good track record, seem to be, the policies are good, not taking corporate money. It seems that they will go in there and fight when necessary. I don't see why you wouldn't support them or try to get them elected because they're running as a Democrat. Like,
sure.
In most cases, they could only run as a Democrat because they don't have ballot access for other things in certain states. So
yeah, unless you're planning on running with pitchforks and fire to literally burn it down and start a real revolution. Like this is what we have to work with. And so I think we need to like get everything done that we can. I just want to make one more quick point on this. Someone made a great point on Twitter the other day saying it was easy to vote for Bernie and to like be a Bernie supporter, to show up to Bernie rallies, to retweet Bernie during his campaigns. So now that Bernie is not running, now the hard part begins, right? Because we don't have him as our rudder. So the hard part is organizing and taking action beyond Bernie. But that was always the message that he gave us, that it wasn't about him, it was about all of us. So I think that that's a real good takeaway.
Absolutely. And by the way, yeah, I could see why somebody would say that, but you weren't really following Bernie for Bernie, you were following for the policies.
Absolutely.
So if you actually look at the 3 point, I mean, he's a lovely, lovable man, but
yeah,
if you look at the deal that we were talking about, the 3.5 trillion, most of those policies have Bernie's fingerprints on them. They would not be in the bill if not for Bernie fighting for it. So it might not be a Bernie rally, but the policies are connected to Bernie.
And folks in the House and in the Senate are moving more towards Bernie on Medicare expansion, which is a great thing. So I think that's again, very, very important to note for sure.
Yeah. Let's read the others.
Das Bills Fleisch for 99 euros saying, I hope the water crisis won't last as long as the Afghanistan war. Well, I think I have bad news for you, because now we start the privatization and what's the word I'm looking for, Jordan, of water, where it becomes the hot commodity of the world. Yeah, the commoditization of water. I think we're entering that right now. It's gonna get real bad, unfortunately, in my opinion.
So let's keep going here.
Trudy, $5 saying, when the Senate looks out the window and sees millions of us demanding action, we will win. Quote Bernie. Got it. You got it.
That is the idea. And that is in large part why I've said, I get why people are angry. I get why a lot of people are hopeless and would say, screw it, I'm done with electoral politics. I'm not showing up. I get the feeling. I mean, I'm pretty cynical and angry myself, but I just think, forget politics, just in life, then what's the point? I mean, if that's the attitude, which I understand why you would feel that way, why watch political shows? Why even tweet about it? Why pay attention? A lot of people can't do anything. Multiple jobs, a lot of kids, they can't take actions or whatever. But I don't think, I think that's where the capitalist class wants you. They want you apathetic. Yeah. They want you to stop caring, to feel defeated, to succumb to the system and this and that. So it's hard. It's hard not to succumb. I get it. I mean, I've been seeing more and more tweets. Jordan, I hear you, but I'm just so hopeless and leaderless. And yet I hear you. I mean, we don't disagree why you feel that way. But I do think, honestly, people need to look back. Americans have a bad habit of selective amnesia. About a year and a half ago, we were on the 5-yard line of possibly Bernie as the general election nominee, which I think he would
forget Nevada.
He would have wiped the floor. Hope. He would have wiped the floor with Biden. As my mama once told me, life's not about the destination; it's the journey. So unfortunately it's not going to be. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a quick journey. Okay, run for president. Maybe we lost 2016. We'll win 2020.
Yeah. It's easy to think okay, this man, Bernie, he's going to solve it all. It's all going to be great now. And then people feel hopeless. And now the real work begins. Yeah.
So, that's all we got. Any parting words?
Just definitely get ready to join us on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, statuscoup.com/join. The Ask Me Anything member calls, so much fun. You can talk directly to us. It's a Zoom call. We have a great time. And we get into it. We truly give you behind the scenes and all of that. Also, we've moved to a new sustainable merchandise, like t-shirt and other stuff shop. So that's statuscoup.tmill.com. And you can get some merch. I'm definitely going to get the tie-dye shirt. I'm very excited about that. Very cool. Tomorrow we will have special guest Mike Preisner, who is Abby Martin's partner. And he, in his own right, he's a former Iraq war veteran, Afghanistan, etc. And he entered into the war at 18 years old with the best intentions in the world. He thought he was doing the right thing. And he quickly came to the realization that he was lied to and that this was disgusting. And he's dedicated his life to spreading the truth. And on Sunday, he obtained, George W. Bush was giving a very high-paid speech, $500 plus per ticket. And he interrupted that speech, Mike Preisner did, and demanded an apology for the deaths of over 1 million Iraqis, the deaths of his friends for lying about weapons of mass destruction, etc. And George W. Bush's response in the middle of Mike's protest was sit down and behave. That's what his words were to this veteran. So you can check out my reporting on that from yesterday, but we're so excited to have him in person tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here, wherever you're watching us, Status Coup. So we're grateful to have him. It'll be a great interview and conversation.
Indeed. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks, Colin. And we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.
Bye, guys.